It has only just begun.
So, here we are. Our destination is confirmed. At last, this is what fans have been asking me for various questions during Viewers' Choice Week on Twitter, and now it reaches its culminating conclusion, and I'm giving back to what you people want. This is Renegade Operative here, and I am finally here to review the heavily requested, long-awaited Devil May Cry reboot, giving you my overall thoughts with my review. This single-handed creation has probably embedded into the minds and hearts of many for the worst. The seismic, critical divide amongst the entire DmC populace that this single game has created was quite honestly one of the most heated quarrels I have ever seen on the internet, with new fans shunning the old and vice versa. Per this review, I'm not going to get into the whole argument in which Capcom and Ninja Theory single-handedly generated nuclear diarrhea with public relations that entail around this game, and you might want to be observant because I'll touch upon that surely. Wink wink. Another disclaimer is that there might be some comparison to the original formula of the Devil May Cry games here or there, so you might see the original games come into the mix, but do not worry, do not fret. I'm going to make this review as fair and impartial as I possibly can allow. We begin, as always, with the story aspect, with the plot underlying our valorous hero and their endeavors. You are Dante, a Nephilim, a half-demon, half-angel hybrid, who soon discovers that the world isn't quite appeased at his existence, and the action surrounding his reckless crusade of sex, partying, and demon slaying. We're soon greeted by a wicked fashionista known as Kat, and Dante's long-lost brother Virgil, who details and unravels a plot of humans under a vast string of corruption, greed, manipulation, and strong arm control behind the scenes. The perpetual ruler, the man behind it all, is Mundus, and he has put his plan into motion for your imminent demise. So it is up to you and your team of ragtag misfits to put a spanner in Mundus' inner workings and lay waste to his operation forever. At first, DmC's plot tries to do the best that it can to flourish on the thematics of his visualized social commentary. The uprising of good and evil, the depiction of how this new Dante throws off the shackles of his unattached beginnings when it comes to his character growth. However, while the story is contemporary, I can't help but feel it's a mishmash of unoriginal concepts as it drags its feet, especially towards the ending of the game where the most cliche and conventional foreshadowing comes to light just as I predicted while playing it. Outside of Dante's blatant dickish behavior, there wasn't much of the same rambunctious charm that the original had. I just couldn't shake the feeling that this new Dante felt seemingly forced to me, like a tryhard, or strung out like a puppet towards the powers that be, or trying to be the cool kid in the back of the class but failing on every sense of the level. The rest of the cast are either unnervingly gullible, weak plot devices, or they are too bland to be taken seriously. Now there is something. Looking deeper into the story, it did have its honest potential. However, its almost supposedly Shakespearean script just suicides itself on particular sections as the rabbit hole grows deeper, and it tries to throw some things on the canvas hoping it sticks, even going so far as to insult the possible consumers buying the game itself with distasteful fourth wall dimensions. Pretty redundant. When we visit the gameplay side of the table for DmC, it offers a myriad of techniques that involves the usual hack and slash formula that the series has been known for, but there have been some questionable exclusions that can still make the blood boil for veterans. This time around, things are readily simplified as the toys get gradually handed out to be played with. I have no distinctive harsh qualms about the mind-numbing difficulty of the DmC series being slightly reduced for a new audience who wants to herald a fundamental time. However, DmC4 already attempted this by the fourth entry, and that game still felt rewarding, by every sense of the definition in regards to free flow hack and slash combat. The combat in DmC, while easy, can probably give you a gratification, if you will, yet I couldn't help but feel I easily missed some fundamentals that were created by the older formula, and that's disappointing. These giant power ballads of insane gun kata, rocking out with a demon guitar, and having a magical briefcase of death is all replaced by something far more casual and invited some intrusive systems at large. This specific, less than heartwarming stance was only created by the color-coded enemies. You can only attack these guys with angel or demon bumpers, though you can't attack them with anything else, which makes your attempt at free flow worthless, which is what the series was known for. They tried an obvious fix to this issue with Definitive Edition, but since your attacks barely do dick to them outside of the color-coded attacks, you'll be wailing away at certain enemies with your axe and scythe as these headaches pop up. Dante also felt a little cumbersome from your standard Rebellion and Enel combination, but as I progressed through the story, I didn't feel it was excruciatingly difficult to get the job done with the majority of tools provided. There's also some platforming elements, secret doors, levels, health collectibles that breaks up the gameplay monotony. Not exactly the most wondrous activity in between sections, but it beats being bored during the whole shebang, and it adds a little exploration, which never hurts. The controls, for the most part, did feel exceedingly fluid with how they were tailored. The guns and swords were mapped pretty steadily. Quick swapping was also introduced to the D-pad, and it flows really well when you need to get a new devil arm in your hands. The angel lift and demon pull all felt correspondingly good, especially with the combat on screen. The only nuisance that I had was that the dodge button was systematically mapped to both default triggers, and that felt a little bit on the redundant side. I'm used to using either the analog to dodge around in hack and slash games or having a dodge style entirely. Luckily, if you don't enjoy the default control scheme like I did, then some headache can be alleviated because I can give praise where it's due and say that the game at least offered a plethora of customization options when it came to the custom controls, and that option is available for all players. The sound effects for the most part are pretty okay. Your usual clashing of swords against fleshy and metallic sinew will sound like an amusing choir to the ear. The sound effects particularly didn't have any noteworthy issues, but when we get to the voice acting, it mostly sounds like half of the cast are blatantly reading from a script, either bored or they sound like they just consumed coffee and a donut and they said, fuck it, let's call it a day. If the game is going to have voice acting, I would like it to be in the most remotely believable window to consider as passable. These guys just seem very bored and forcefully hokey, and not in a fun way at all. And the music definitely doesn't grow on me because I'm not that much of a big fan of dubstep, but if you like that kind of music, then more power to you. I find the hard rock of Combi Christ to be a little bit more favorable to me, but that's not saying particularly too much. The graphics are definitely passable, but they look a little bit more aged compared to other remasters on the market, and I guess this was due in part to the proprietary engine that was used to funnel life into this game and the look of it with the Unreal Engine 3. Honestly, even with the overhaul of the 1080p 60 FPS insanity, this engine still feels a little dated in areas, and it definitely shows. However, one thing they did excel at was the environments, and the environments still make this game pop to an absolutely exciting proficiency. DmC Devil May Cry, the Definitive Edition, does some great additions with this port, like Gods Must Die, Hardcore, Turbo Mode, and new skins, and Virgil Bloody Palace. I think that shouldn't go too underappreciated despite its faults. However, when tallying the things that accredited to the core gameplay, some newer elements just felt unnecessary, and I think that Ninja Theory should take note in case another collaboration with Capcom happens again. Is DmC a good action game on its own merits? Certainly it has the tendency to be considered as such. It really works well if you're a beginner and you're trying to get into the series for the first time and you want something relatively easy to pick up and play. It entails it being an easy game for newcomers to get into, but when stacking up against the older series, there's unfortunately too many dilemmas, too many obstructions with the free flow combat, and cumbersome issues that isn't on par with its Fast and Furious predecessors. overall, some fun can be gleaned from this title. It's not beneath anyone to give it an honest college try to see what it is and see what it presents and see what works on every singular level in regards to the wholesome time. And maybe in that time the game might grow on you, but in the end, that's what my experience attributed to, a mix of faults and some honestly good ideas, but it all fell through the cracks with its execution. In the end, I give DmC Devil May Cry an honest 3 out of 5.